Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 18 of Down the Pub podcast, brought to you by Wolves of Westminster. I am your host, Peter Simpson, contributor to Wolves of Westminster, and I also run the Haryan Gláeddyv channel. Today, I am joined by Patrick Timms, the editor of Wolves of Westminster. Hello, Patrick.
Good day, sir.
Good day. And we are also joined by Simon, contributor to Wolves of Westminster.
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, and we also have other Peter, or Peter Barnes, Talk TV contributor and contributor to Wolves of Westminster.
Hi, guys.
Hello. So, as I usually say, all other interesting topics out of the way, you talk about these things. Once again, no, I don't think so, because lots has happened this week and also a little bit last week, because I think we want to start off with Reform are growing in number. I think certainly last time Simon and Peter are on, other Peter, we've had, 3 more MPs join Reform? Robert Jenrick, Andrew Rochendale, is it? And Suella Braverman, who are, certainly 2 of them are big hitters. Obviously both ministers, one Home Secretary, the other Immigration Minister. Shadow Justice for Jenrick as well. I don't think Suella never got a shadow cabinet position, did she? She was bit too much for
no, she did not. She was unceremoniously sacked.
Yes. So there we go. So certainly with Robert Jenrick getting kicked out the Tory party, which me and Patrick talked about last week, obviously he had no choice really but to go to Reform, and Suella was more of a why did it take her so long? I think we can all agree.
I think with Suella, it was kind of similar to Robert insofar as we knew basically it was an open secret that there had been 4 months of negotiations going on, and that it was a case of, will she, won't she? It's like a 60-40, as Farage said. But the minute that we knew Jenrick was joining Reform, I thought, right, she's going to do it in the next few days. I was actually surprised it took her that long. I thought the reason it's pretty clear the reason they delayed the Labour defection at the last minute was because she finally sort of made up her mind to cross over. And indeed, it's been heavily speculated ever since her husband, while he joined Reform, I believe, last year or even a little bit earlier than that. So it was very interesting that it took her just a little bit longer to get over the finish line. If you're Andrew Rosendale, I was kind of surprised by, although I was told the day before that there was a sort of 70% chance he'd defect. I was quite skeptical. But then it actually happened. And I thought to myself, okay, not a big beast. Shadow cabinet, yes, but I think it was an important moral loss. Because Andrew, in conservative circles, and particularly in young conservative circles in which I have been, is a bit of a poster boy. He does this very sort of famous thing where whenever he visits a university conservative association, he gives you a signed picture of His Majesty the King. It's sort of like quite a fancy thing. I've got a picture of it. I'll send it around later. But he'll always come and visit, and he'll speak. It will be great fun. He'll give you one of these. He is the sort of final boss of Tory boy, and now he's in.
He is actually.
He's the Tory boy final boss.
Don't say that. We're trying to avoid
Don't
Tory 2.0.
A little too late for that, I'm afraid, chap.
He is Tory boy. He is Tory poster boy, effectively, and he's gone over. So I think it shows. It shows that people like him in the Tory party aren't there anymore.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if it had been Jacob Rees-Mogg, that would have been Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, that would be even worse in terms of Tory boys.
The minute Rees-Mogg goes.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, agreed on that one.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead on.
Rees-Mogg will go at the last minute. He will genuinely be party member number 3 left.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's. I forget which comedian this was that said on "I've Got News for You" that Jacob is basically he's like a child's drawing of a Tory, and he is.
He's there to fix the Whig party and know his big dead years.
But so we also now, of course, we have the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, and she has gone over. I had some insider intel on that one, which I wasn't allowed to share, so there we go. But I knew that was coming. And I think, to be honest, we all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. But to answer your question as to why now, I think it's because they hadn't worked out the theory of how to control them. Because if you think about it, the thing that Robert Gendrick doesn't have now that he had before is options. So, like, he always could go back to the Tories if it didn't work out in reform. The way that Nigel Farage has made them leave is burn the bridges. So they are trapped. They can't go anywhere else. So therefore, they're somewhat of a leashed lion, is how I've been phrasing it. So it's actually a very, very smart move on Nigel and Reform's part.
Yeah.
The way they've handled it is genius, because there's no way that, you know, Lee Anderson could control Robert Jenrick as chief whip. I mean, let's be real. The skill level is, you know, it's chalk and cheese. But now Jenrick can't go anywhere because of the phrase Bobby the Betrayer. They've got this kind of fealty thing. He's made them take the knee. So it's genius. It's the whole spectacle, I have to admit, has been a masterclass. So whoever's told them how to do it should be taking bows.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly. I mean,
Part of history remembers.
From what I can tell as well, it's not just it doesn't seem to just be the Tory party they're burning bridges with, but also certainly with Robert Jenrick. I remember he had a bit of a go at, say, Camilla Townley. So it's even the Tory media that they're having a go at, and not.
Yeah, it's the establishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the way that they can
In
way
fairness
back
to
in.
Jenrick, what Camilla said was a little bit odd. I mean, she effectively said, like, "Oh, Robert, why didn't you give me the exclusive for literally no reason?"
Yeah.
Why
It's
didn't you?
like, you've been a journalist for like 30 years. What are you doing?
So-
It's like, what a tantrum.
I'm completely with you on that. I thought it was a bit of a silly question, but the way he reacted, I thought, was also layering it on thick, probably thicker than he needed to.
Yeah, but he was a bit too angry. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and they've all done that. They've all done that. I remember even Zahawi. I can't remember who he said, but it's, "Oh, you're asking a really, really stupid question." Like, he said that to about 3 journalists.
Well, just speaking of journalists,
It's
Yeah.
cathartic, maybe, after years of not being able to.
Yeah, Reform just let you.
but as I said,
Yeah,
speaking
but
of
just like, you know
journalists,
what? Let it rip.
Yeah, go on.
you can see sometimes how when people are basically making themselves a story. Now, I recall a piece in The Spectator by Isabel Oakeshott, and the entire piece was basically saying, because apparently she got passed a lead about the Matt Hancock story. I think we all know which one I'm talking about. And she didn't act on it because she didn't think there was much to it. And then it turned out that there was. And she did a whole story in The Spectator saying, "Why didn't I act on this?" And it's like, when the hell did you become the story of? You know, it's really one of those. So when you have journalists who are turning themselves into the story, usually this means that some Westminster hacks are, hacked off.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, even
Yeah,
she
it's
even.
the Alistair Campbell rule, isn't it? Sorry. Go on,
No, it's all right. I was just going to say, Tom Lee even posted the WhatsApps between her and Jenrick, as if anyone didn't believe her, but two, I would have thought that's a bit of a cardinal rule of don't post WhatsApps between yourself
don't do
and
that.
politicians. That I certainly wouldn't have thought that's a good idea anyway.
No.
And I'm amateur, so there we go. So
Well, the thing in politics is if there's anything you really don't want to be known about, don't say it.
just don't say it.
Yes. Also, don't write it down. Don't write it down anywhere in any form. Like whether it's, Robert Jenrick needs to learn this about speeches. Don't write it down.
I was going to say, if I was going to defect from one team to another, I don't think I'd print off my defection speech, but there we go.
My big, epic, secret plan, top secret, do not open. For my eyes only.
Reverse psychology. Reverse
So-
psychology. Nobody will read this thing.
Cartoons where
One
the old Looney Tunes cartoons, there's a massive sign saying like secret bunker.
A big-
huge neon sign.
Yeah, big neon sign pointing at it and everything. Yeah, I was going to say though, the other interesting part about this is there was polling done on what Reform voters think, because a lot of people were then trying to say, "Oh, they're Tory 2.0. They'll never have this, the core vote," and then it turns out most of the core votes are either, "Yeah, I can see why they did it. It's balanced," or, "Oh yeah, I'm actually quite happy about this," and quite far behind it was
it's an
people were
interesting one,
disappointed.
actually.
Yeah, so it seems to actually have worked out for everyone, apart from the Tories, of course.
It's somewhat of the the kind of the way that UKIP was the way of shaking off certain people in the Tory party. The way that Reform have done it, they've shook off the bit that wasn't kind of team Reform, if you know what I mean. That anybody who was slightly questioning has left Reform now. It's now a solid base, which has not been for quite some time. This idea that the base is out fractured, I don't think is true anymore, because if you had doubts, you've gone. It's actually again, this actually has been a very smart move by Reform, because it's hurt now. By the time we get to the election, none of this will even be a story. So it's actually the best time to do it. But I have to admit, I think the Labour defection has been delayed, because if they lose the by-election, they can say, well, we don't need to win, we'll take your people anyway. I think that's why that's been delayed. I think it's a little bit of positioning, because if it's not, then they miss the stroke. But I think that's kind of how it's going.
Well, I mean...
Oh, of course. And speaking of Labour...
Well, yes.
We also have the latest developments around Mr. Burnham now, don't we? So, he sort of now. I will actually, if I might, I will echo Peter E's notions about political games playing, because in fact, what the Labour NEC has done here is played quite a lot of a blinder. In not allowing him to stand for that seat, because what they've now effectively done is defenestrated him in his own constituencies, because now his constituents, as mayor of Greater Manchester, they now know that he'd rather be doing something else, but he's not allowed to. So, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of that party, despite being a full member of it, I can see that the NEC here is actually probably played quite a bit of a blinder here. What they've done is they've demonstrated authority, I suppose, in some ways, but also, I mean, to be honest, this was quite inevitable. There's always a sense in which you have to look back on this and say, why did he think he was going to get away with this? He was never going to get away with this.
Yeah.
Now his reputation has been damaged. Because
look at who was on the NEC. I genuinely did predict only Lucy Powell was going to vote for him, because everybody else either is a bit too scared of Starmer or is directly allied to Starmer. And that was basically correct. It was just Lucy Powell. And it was a non-story. It was not a non-story. It was a busted flush within days.
So now we have
but he was a flush. Sorry.
Then we have a by-election coming up, and we don't know where that's going.
Yes, my thing with the by-election is it's a by-election of narratives. Everybody wins and everybody loses this by-election, I'm afraid. And yet again, it'll be the people, the people represented, that will be ignored. Because every political party has something to win and something to gain, no matter what the result goes by now. And I think that is a very telling part of the collapse of two-party politics, where actually these kind of games are going to be more prevalent now, because the chances of getting a kind of supermajority, I think, are gone. The more parties you have, the less likely you've got to have these big majorities. And I think we're going to have to get used to it. This kind of gamesmanship that you get, in places like Central Europe, it's pretty much common practice to start doing this out in the coal business, which is, I think you bang on, Patrick, with what they did to Andy Burnham. It was a master stroke of how to kind of get rid of somebody without actually getting rid of them. It's yet again, whoever's coming up with these plans, well done.
Well, I mean, I've said this before, that because all the people who got knocked off with Sir Tony Blair becoming Sir Tony Blair, people who got knocked off with Sir Sadiq Khan becoming Sir Sadiq Khan, actually they were being shown their ceiling, not their floor. Yeah. So sometimes that's how you get rid of people. In this case, what they've done is basically defenestrate him. But this is what people do in politics. So now there will be this by-election. And again, it's all about people outmaneuvering each other. I wonder what we think about whether or not the Greens are going to do very well in that by-election.
I think they'll do brilliantly. I think they'll do extraordinarily well. When you look at the demographics of the makeup of the constituency, it is prime target. I actually think they might have a expectations.
On George Galloway.
If that group together, my God, they're unstoppable if those two ever get together. That's when I'm going to Dubai.
Well, it is a weird constituency, because the video I did today was all about sort of the Vox Pop, and it seems to be a case of Labour votes in 2024. Quite a lot of them are worried about Reform getting in, and they're quite. None of them know anything about the Greens, but they're quite happy to vote for the Greens if they think they'll win and tactically keep Reform out. I'm not necessarily sure how that's going to last as the Greens get more and more publicity and Zach Polanski gets asked more and more questions. Because he's not actually. He's a good performer when he's not being challenged. But any sort of challenge, he will start to lose it.
He's not Nigel. He's not Nigel. That, I think, Reform are massive. A lot of the bases are massively under kind of put any pressure on it, because you look at the statistics, the Green voters, Lib Dems and Labour will work together to vote out a Reform. So it's that kind of rainbow coalition. Anyone, pronouns in a lanyard, as I like to call them. It's going to be a problem moving forward for the Reform Party, because these kind of small constituencies where they could go either way. I think if a bit of tactical voting, and it's all to play for. If
I'm definitely predicting a bit of a carefully result again, where
it's not very much the legitimate child of Rochdale and Carefully.
Yeah, well, it's it's just outside Manchester city centre, as Carefully is just outside of Cardiff. It's very left-wing area. I mean, even the polling now, it's Reform has got pretty much all the right-wing votes. There's 5% Tory or whatever, who even cares? And that's kind of like it for the country, to be honest. But then you've got 20% Labour and Green. Go on.
The problem that I've seen, the main problem looks to be, for the left in particular, that people are not 100% sure who the anti-reform vote is, because Labour's and, again, Workers' Party are both, not Workers' Party that it was ever competitive in Cardiff, but certainly Labour is more competitive in this particular constituency, according to polling, than it was in Cardiff. And again, you've got the added what on earth effect of the Workers' Party. Again, if run Galway, which I think they will, you do not announce that he might run without planning for him to run. If they run the guy, then it really is all to play for, and there is ever so slight a chance that Matt Goodwin might just about sneak through the middle.
Which is the funniest outcome.
It's like Aaron Baxter became mayor of Bristol, just by default.
You are sounding a lot like a sports commentator at the moment, but that's perfectly fine. Can I just go on my anti-pronouns rant for a little while?
Yes, by all means. We actively encourage it.
Well, this is the thing. So now we have this thing, which is he stroke him, or she stroke her, or they stroke them. My main rant is, why are you putting he stroke him? Because at the end of the day, it was never going to be he stroke her or she stroke him, was it? Well, so at the end of the day, when you put that on the email signature, you put that in your Twitter bio, at the end of the day, all you're doing is demonstrating to the entire world that, yes, you do indeed know in your own first language how to conjugate a personal pronoun in both the nominative and the objective case. There is simply no reason for doing so. It is stylistic. There is no reason for it. This is quite simply a case of saying, look, if you want to say he, fine, say he. If you want to say she, you want to say they, or some other weird things around these days, but it's just a stylization of it that annoys me as a linguist. It's like he stroke him, as though it was never going to be he stroke her. This was never going to be the case.
I'm going to say, Patrick, are you accusing these people of being all about the kind of the showing and the virtue signaling by any chance, rather than the substance of something?
It's sort of that, but it's more about the sort of the midwit pseudo-intellectual kind of, hey, you don't need this. All you're doing is demonstrating that you do know how to conjugate a personal pronoun in both the nominative and the oblique case. This is not clever. This is not funny. This is not something that makes you look good. This is quite simply you pandering to the latest fad. That's what it is, and that's all it is. So that's the thing that annoys me about this. However, the one silver lining of this, and again, I say this as a linguist, is that it has finally taught millions of people around the world what the hell a pronoun actually is.
Well, I hope that was all worth it, because fortunately, I think we're past peak pronouns. I'm noticing less pronouns in email signatures, I have to say. So
I'll agree with that, actually.
I'm very happy to report that. Yeah, I was going to say that feels like a very 2023 rant, but you're a linguist, so I'll let you get away with it.
Yeah, but let's not forget, we keep talking about 2016, don't we? So
yeah, exactly. Well,
history doesn't go away.
Well, quite. Well, to bring us back to 2026, I'm quite happy with the pick of Matt Goodwin. Mainly because I've never really been one for, you need someone local to be your MP. Of course, I would say that because I moved to Wales recently.
Yeah.
I have some ambitions. But
I was going to say,
because I saw a lot of people basically saying, for a seat like that, you'd want a Lee Anderson 2.0, which Lee Anderson did introduce him as their candidate. But then again, on the other hand, he's very good with the media, Matt Goodwin. Obviously has his own show on GB News and is a guest constantly with Michelle Dewberry, whoever else. And obviously is an academic and is very, very versed on a lot of these arguments. So I think over the month, when obviously there's lots of media interviews and things like that, I think he will shine. I don't think it'll necessarily be enough to win because it is a complex seat. But I also think he's one who can, get away with losing in a seat like that. Because I don't know how confident Reform are that they're going to win that. I know they're throwing the kitchen sink at this.
I don't think they're very confident at all. Putting him forward, I think, shows that they're not very confident, actually, because he's somewhat of, I think, of a sacrificial lamb, because it's going to heavily dominate on the issue of Islam. And that's where I think they put Goodwin in, because of his narratives that he is an academic. However, there's enough clips circling on X and everything now that would probably wipe him out in any other constituency. I think this is actually, he's been a very faithful acolyte. Now he's somewhat of the kind of, go stand next to that big dinosaur so they can eat you up and then we can get rid of you. I think that's a little bit of what I think Reform have got in mind. That's why it's not Azia, that's why it's not any of what we would class as the top Reform team, but it's somewhat of the B team. We think it's a step up for them. It's actually to get rid of the people that they think might be a problem further down the line if they continue down the narratives they're going down.
If I could just come in on that one, and this is very similar to the point I was making before. This is how you get rid of people in politics, isn't it? But interestingly, I mean, within Reform, do you have, aside from Nigel, do you have anything other than acolytes? I don't think you do. So
no,
you don't really, do you? So it's one of those where, yes, okay, so they brought him on board, they brought Sewell on board. These are, Rossingdale as well. These are all kinds of things where you sort of think to yourself, well, is this about you using them or them using you, or them thinking they're using you, but actually you're using them, which is how politics works. So it does seem to me to be something like that. Now, in this case, Matt Goodwin, I mean, I've met him. I assume the rest of us have as well.
Yeah, I have.
Not yet.
And it's one of those. I think, Simon, you and I, when we were at the Reform conference, I think we both met him. But I could be wrong.
Yes, I met him very briefly before that as well. I've emailed him a few times for various reasons. My take on this is that they basically think, okay, this might end up being a seat we win, but it's not as likely so as to want, just an MP is going to be a drone. They've chosen somebody who, if he does become an MP, it's not actually that bad. There are certainly positives. Do they want him to win? I suspect they would slightly prefer if he didn't. I have heard that he's not necessarily amazing at making friends in that office. But I think it's a case of, well, if he loses, that's all right. And if he wins, that's fairly okay as well.
Well, speaking of
to go up against Burnham, by the way, I think they did have an inkling he might run against Burnham. That didn't happen.
Well, I think speaking to that, I mean, you have to look at, the same thing happens in the two main parties as well. So, I mean, if you look at Theresa May first stood as an MP, I think in 1992, I could be wrong.
92, yeah.
92. And, well, she didn't win. And I don't think she won in 97 either. Maybe she did, can't remember. But the point is, the first time that people tend to run, they don't tend to win. So,
Hmm.
you know, and then you have the alternative to that, which is people running in seats that you would never expect them to win, and then they do, and suddenly, oh, hey, hell, I'm an MP. They weren't even expecting this. And now they have to find somewhere in Westminster to live, you know, all sorts, that kind of thing, you know, because they don't help you, you know, they really don't.
No, they really don't. They really don't. Every political party has this problem where an MP suddenly, like, they win their constituency and then they go, oh, right, okay, we're going to have to actually do something to help you. Because I think the one thing you'll tell whether Reform wanted to see or not, it's always how much money did they put behind it? What resources did they really put into actually the campaign machine? And if there's not a lot of money there, it means they never really wanted it in the first place. It's a bit brutal of a way to look at it, but it's the realities of modern politics, I'm afraid.
Well, it is, and you're quite right to use the word brutal. I mean, with that said, though, it works all the way around. You know, the seat I live in, Crewe and Nantwich, well, that was the 5th most marginal seat in the UK in the 2019 election. It had a Labour majority of 48. So suddenly we got a huge war chest of about 40 grand, and Priti Patel came up, and Lord Hayward came up, and all of that kind of thing, and James Cleverly came up. You can tell when they really do want to win a seat, and indeed that seat did translate into, from a Labour majority of 48 into a Tory majority of 8,500, I think, something like that. So
I've been working off the theory that if Sarah Poaching turns up, they don't want it to win the seat. If Robert Jenrick or Farage turns up, they do want the seat. I think there's a layer of kind of ranking of MPs.
Poaching's already been there.
Well, I think that's everything.
This reminds me of an incredible story that Richard Holden told me of how he became an MP in Durham before he ran away the other way. Which is that when he was working at CCHQ, I believe in the press department, all the guys from campaign sort of rang him up and said, "Hey, Richard, mate, how are you? Listen, I've got a bit of a favour to ask. Do you want to be a paper candidate for like Northwest Durham? Because the candidate is a bit too ill to complete the forms at me." Richard was like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no problem." But he was in the pub or something, I think. And he woke up on election. He's like, "Richard, you've won." It's like, "Huh?" "Yeah, you've been." I was like, "What?" Apparently at this point he just had no idea what to do with this. So he was like, "Right, well, yeah, I've quadrupled my salary, but where am I going to live?"
Yeah, well, exactly, because like I say, they don't help you. Speaking of, just as you mentioned, Simon, about paper candidates, now, when I stood for councillor in Crewe West, I did so because we were using the whole kind of local lad thing, which I was. But at first, they just wanted me to be a paper candidate, to which I said a more family-friendly version of F off, and that therefore, you know, we were going to fight this election, we're going to fight this election. But I had to pay for my own leaflets because they weren't going to do that for me. Now, I got 409 votes. In that ward, it's more like 900 that you'll get, which is always returned Labour councillors anyway, so there was never really very much of a point to it. But, you know, there was actually a swing to us. As I was standing as a Tory at the time. And in fact, given that was the 2019 local elections, this was the first time the electorate has had any chance to punish the Tories for not leaving the European Union on the 29th of March in that year, as had been announced. That was actually quite something. But like I say, they wanted me to stand as a paper candidate, and I basically said, you can get stuff. You know, I'm not. There's no way in hell that I'm going to stand as a paper candidate. If you want me to fight a campaign, I'm going to do it properly. Now, I can see both Mr. Burnham, wherever he gets, if he does get anywhere, but now also we have, you know, other people who are potentially looking at this or that or the other. I can see them all doing the same thing. and so they should. Would be my advice. Is you don't just stand down. You don't just say no. I'm only supposed to be a paper candidate. I'm only supposed to be doing this. No. If you're going to fight an election campaign, you do it properly. With that said, I do have it on some decent intelligence. It actually costs, if you do it yourself, about 18 grand to stand as an MP. Okay, so then again, you can compare that to America, where if you want to run for president. Now, I don't know about senators and that sort of thing, but if you want to stand for president, you need to have a lot of money, because the other guy definitely will either way. So it is one of those where
I heard somewhere that the funded congressional race is funded better than the best funded race for prime minister in the UK.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Genuinely, this is from a
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
real campaign consultant.
Yeah. I have to admit that the funding level for compared to America in the UK, I quite like it though, that it doesn't seem as mucky and as grubby as just being a who can buy the most airtime and all that kind of thing. I do like the fact that it's a little bit more British, for want of a better phrase. It's a bit less kind of
fair,
like House of Cardsy, bit fairer, you know.
So we're all skins effectively.
Yes, we're like the country. I feel, I identify as the nation, right? Broken.
well,
Yeah, me too. Well, and speaking of
we all need pay rises, yeah.
Well, and speaking of international politics, we have the latest shenanigans going on over Chagos, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, this is a powder keg, literally. My God.
Well, obviously Labour want to get it through for whatever reason, and everyone who doesn't want it wants to take credit for it. So obviously, Kemi wants to take credit for all the fighting they've done in Parliament. Reform wants to take credit because Nigel met with some American advisors to Donald Trump and what have you, and said, "Please, in Davos, this was, please don't please stop us from giving away our own islands, please." And then, despite all that, in the end, they're saying the US Secret Service or whatever are actually in favour of the deal, and it might go ahead after all. So God knows what's going on with it. Really, I have never seen such anything like this in my life. For some reason, our government is trying to give our own lands away against their own manifesto. Of people have actually realised, they said they protect the overseas territories
against the wishes of the people that live there.
Well,
yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, live there. They've not lived there.
I just enjoyed the Labour Party.
Years.
Yeah. I've enjoyed the Labour Party giving me a sermon on sovereignty.
Well, and then
that's what I'm
there's
particularly
Greenland.
enjoying. I mean, the guy who
Greenland as well. Yeah.
Well, the thing that people have to remember is that Greenland and Chagos are actually linked. It's all to do with strategic geography and your kind of access to permissions. People keep looking at international politics like it's domestic politics. It's not quite the same. It's about tomorrow, not today. But unfortunately, the thing with the Chagos and everybody taking credit is it doesn't matter who takes credit. But as long as it gets stopped, I don't really care who wants to take the victory lap. Because realistically, it's not going to be in the minds of that many people by the time we get to the general election. It just seems to be a little bit, bit like schoolyard kind of, I'm in with that clique and that kind of thing. It seems a bit pathetic, actually. And it has annoyed me how every Tory has jumped on this, like, I had this meeting and that's it. It's irrelevant. It's Donald Trump. It is irrelevant to the meeting that you had. Let's be real. The reason that Farage went to Davos was to get that corridor moment, that conversation that he had a meeting, and he could spin that as a kind of, I'm an international player, that kind of thing. That's why he went. It was a credibility kind of stamp of approval. But apart from that, it's a complete mess. But we will have to wait and see how it plays out, I'm afraid. And usually that doesn't mean well.
Well, I was going to say, we'll give him away still, probably for 60 billion.
That's what I'm waiting for Mauritius to come back and say, well, we did all these plans.
It's not even giving it away.
Yeah.
We're not even selling it, or we're not even just giving it away. We are paying them to take it.
And everyone knows it's nobody can defend this. I've not seen anyone in Labour actually try and defend it. Just we're doing it.
I'm pretty sure even the Germans have said, like, are you absolutely insane? The Germans, who are the kings of making terrible policy choices. The Germans are telling you foreign policy is scoffed. You need to go and have a good hard look at them.
I think I made a post on Twitter saying the worst thing about being right wing at the moment is that no matter what topic you talk about, you sound like you're talking in conspiracy theories. Because nobody's going.
Yes.
I've told normies about this. They do not believe we're just giving land away with money, and it's like, yeah. We're actually doing that, by the way. But they still.
Well, this is the thing.
Sorry, go on.
Go on. Yeah.
This is the difference between when the difference between domestic politics and international politics when we're looking at where people want to feel like they are on the world stage, and I get the impression from Starmer that he wants to feel like this is where he is on the world stage. He can make a big difference to something or other, and something or other doesn't matter. The definition thereof doesn't matter. He's already. I mean, where the hell can he go further on the world on the domestic stage? He's already prime minister. He's got nothing more to prove there. He's got a huge majority behind him, which is slightly dwindling, but he's got a huge majority there. So what do you do next? And this is always the question that a leading man or indeed woman will ask themselves of where they are right now. What do I do next? This is very human. That much is certain.
Yeah.
And so where do we end up? We end up with, hey, I can do this at the world stage because at least I've done something. But the reality is what you've done is not particularly amazing, and therefore we end up with a situation like this. And it's like the old satire from Yes Minister, something must be done, this is something, therefore we must do it. And I see it as that. There is not much common sense behind this deal, not much at all. But at least if you do something, you've done something.
Well,
once you get that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, 100%. But I think, again, I go back to the point of, I think Starmer thought this was a bit of kind of post-colonial paperwork to tidy up, and actually he's not seen the international ramifications of the future element that kind of goes with this deal.
Did he just forget the massive military base? Did you just forget that?
Well, it's Keir Starmer. The bar is low. But no, again, I don't think he realizes the strategic nature of that base, about why it's actually more about not necessarily the Middle East, but actually about the South China Sea. And like that bit, he's looking at it as from the past rather than to the future, which is what a lot of people, and particularly the commentariat, keep talking about. And I'm like, please stop talking. Just stop talking.
Well, yeah. It was posted on Twitter again recently, but it did come out last year that during COVID in 2020, Philippe Sands, who is Starmer's friend and the main reason that it even got to the UN for that judgment, he was given Mauritian citizenship 6 years ago. There's a clip that I keep posting to Twitter as well of him. I'm not sure what talk he's at, but he basically says, oh, it's amazing in Britain. You can go on the world stage and you can do everything you can to basically screw Britain over and then come back and be celebrated as a hero. And it really does go to show what sort of bubble he is in, because everybody hates this decision who actually finds out about this. But, at the London dinner parties, as they call it, I would imagine they're a bit more, oh, yes, we're losing our power, hard power. Isn't that a good thing?
That is bang on, in my opinion. I think that's the mentality.
All our international partners think it's mad. All our international partners think it's mad, and they condemn this decision. And for some reason, this is the one who have not buckled to foreign pressure. Like on this specific thing.
Well, I would rather disagree. I think they're doing the foreign. I think it's China. I think it's actually something more to the fact that it's Mauritius' link with China. And I think that's, if you look at the kind of the links between the Labour Party now and China, it's absolutely astronomical how this is not being investigated further. Particularly in the public, I have to admit.
Plus the mega agency as well.
Well, that leads on to another topic, doesn't it? Which is, as you say, P2B, this is China. And so now we have trade delegations going over to China. We have the Prime Minister going over there. Now, with that said, it's a bit difficult to completely lambast Labour over this because, of course, when it was Cameron and Osborne, they were cozying up to China as well. So we can't really run down partisan lines on this one. We can't really do that. But at the same time, we can say it would appear that the British government, this is the thing, right? When you've worked close to defence, as I have, there's lots of stuff that nominally you and I and etc. don't know, okay, about what is going on. Sometimes politicians make decisions that seem inexplicable, but that's because they know stuff that you don't about the defence of the realm, about what is actually going on, about defence, national and international security matters that you don't, and you're not supposed to. So sometimes inexplicable decisions get made, or they seem inexplicable, but it's because they know something you don't, and you're not supposed to know it. So at the end of the day, it comes down to how much faith you have in the competence of the politicians involved versus whether or not it's a case of maybe they do actually know something you don't, which indeed only they are supposed to know. So it's I'm just repeating myself several times there, but it's you work for military defence, you will find yourself repeating yourself many, many times when it comes to this.
Yeah. I think you're right, Patrick. You do have to kind of presume that there are things they know that we don't know, and of course we shouldn't know. It's the point of national security. It wouldn't really make any sense for the public to always know about this stuff. But I don't know, when our own security services come out and say this is a terrible idea, not to them but to the press, when it comes to the super embassy, I think you kind of have to take that kind of as at face value and say that the government is actively ignoring its own security services, particularly when you then couple in a pattern with Peter Mandelson and the decisions that the Labour Party chose to ignore that as well, and the warnings they gave. But I think with the China visit, I do get the feeling that this wasn't supposed to go the way it's gone in terms of it was supposed to be Golden Era 2.0, a kind of reset with China, and they wanted this kind of Cameron era reblossoming. But I do think the way that the super embassy nonsense has gone down, I think this is China saying, don't you dare do this again, because we're just going to make you look like an idiot a little bit. Imagine how we could really make you hurt. I do think you have to remember that China has a long-term plan here, and I don't think they like, Tower Hamlets Council getting involved as heavily as they have done.
Well, no, by all means. Let's just take a moment to acknowledge that Simon has had to bow out of this meeting at this point.
Yes, thank you for coming on.
But you're right, Peter B. You are right, because yes, we have had this kind of thing before, and we have also had similar things with other countries. In this case, what we seem to have is a case in which it's like we can't do anything right, really, can we? There's nothing right that we can do that is right by this country. We can't do that. All we can do is attempt to kowtow, and this is a term that has been ascribed to the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Other countries. So and you just sort of. But the thing is, the Prime Minister seems to be quite willing to do that, and that's one of the things we notice about this government, not just the Prime Minister, but we notice about this government is that they're actually quite happy with that. It's a very sort of, it's almost as though we're still in the EU, where you just get to say, oh, hey, somebody else will make this decision for us, and now they're going, oh, we've got to make this decision now, and we'd rather somebody else made it for us. I mean, ça change.
Yeah, the concept of action is so terrifying to the British establishment that we keep seeing it as witchcraft. Statecraft has become mysticism now. They don't know how to do anything. And it's because we were in the European Union for so long that we didn't really have to do very much. And suddenly we got dumped with all this power, and that meant all the responsibility. And we gave it to literally the worst and most incompetent people you could imagine. That was the worst thing. We took back control and gave it to idiots. And I wish we hadn't done that bit. It's making me rethink that maybe Brexit was not the best idea.
No, I won't be hearing that. Yeah.
What most Brexiteers, I think, would say is that it laid the foundations, and that was all it could do. It was always ever what it was only ever going to do. You see, so you're always going to have that. Was it going to be a silver bullet, though? Well, I don't think any sensible Brexiteer would have assumed that.
No.
And with that said, when I talk about sensible Brexiteers, I think there were quite clearly a few people who thought, you do this, and then, oh yeah, everything's fixed. No.
Yeah.
For the more sensible ones on the side of that argument, that was never going to be the case. It was always going to be the case of how you used it, and also how you achieved it. As I say, in terms of things like, you can talk about the withdrawal agreement, you can talk about the Windsor framework, the Northern Ireland framework, the various bits of that whole backstop thing that finally got backstopped. But, yes, indeed, you have a ruling administrative class that does not really know what to do with this amount of power. And so not only were they quite happy with farming it out to the EU, they've also been quite happy with farming it out by devolving it at various different levels. So basically, they didn't have to be responsible for anything. Now, that much, I think, is certain. I don't normally, as editor of Rules, I don't normally express these kinds of opinions, but I will do because I'm the editor, so I can. Yes, well, there we are. I'm allowed to. So there we go. But I think there is a significant element of that. But what we also have is this quite. It's just an intransigence against doing anything, isn't it? It's kind of sort of, we don't want to actually have to make a change to anything. Because that which it is that exists as an established order has done for so very long, and nobody really knows what to do about it anymore. But the question then becomes, is radical revolution the right answer? And I would say no. To people like Rupert Lowe, MP, and his outfit of Restore Britain, the stuff that comes out of them is more radical every week.
I will say, did you see they had how to save the pub policy paper? I don't think anyone read it, but
I saw that. Yeah, I saw it. I didn't even read it.
I think one of their policies was like, let 16-year-olds buy beer that's weaker than 3% or something like that, and their whole reasoning was, 16-year-olds need to be encouraged to go to the pub and be part of their community. And I just thought, I always went to pubs with my family when I was, young. What's that about? So
it's this idea of everything out the box is really good now. Sometimes the box is a box for a reason, and you have to stay in the box. The problem with this Overton window theory that everybody keeps talking about is that, yes, it moves, but it can also move back. It doesn't stay in one fixed position, and they think that, so clearly everybody's now in favor of mass deportations. Well, maybe on one pole for a little bit of time. You've got to keep the argument going. You've got to bring the public with you. It's not just going to it's not a marker, it's a moving target.
It's
annoying, actually, because they're not wrong, but
I mean,
it's also the kind of internal nature of that lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, as well, they think it can only go one way now. Well, hold on. The immigration America, that's just completely flipped, all because 2 people were shot in Minnesota. Because what's been going on with ICE has been, they're basically paramilitary in Minnesota. Shot a guy in the back for no reason. There's no other way to put that, I'm afraid. And overnight, all of Trump's positions on immigrations have suddenly become unpopular, and abolishing ICE is now the popular position. So careful how you do these things, because
Quite right. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to emasculate myself slightly by quoting my mother, because she's quite right.
I do it all the time, so.
Well, here's a little shout out to mothers everywhere. I know she's going to watch this at some point, so she may as well. But as she said to me before, the pendulum is swinging back.
Yeah.
She's 80.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was born in 1945. She's seen a lot of chisel.
Yeah.
And in fact, what we are seeing now is the pendulum swinging back. The question is, how does that happen? And if Rupert Lowe and his Restore Britain thing think that this is how it's going to swing back, I think they're probably mistaken on that score, because it's going to be, these things happen quietly. They do not happen loudly. And so the louder you attempt to make these kinds of things, the less likely you are to actually see them happen. What you have to be doing is community organizing. Now, I will give another example on this score. From, and I don't know if either of you have heard of it, is a very, very small party called the Taking the Initiative Party.
Oh,
probably not. Oh, you have heard of it?
No,
was Corbyn's brother part of that?
Well, you might have had some brief association, but not from what I've seen. This party was set up in, what's it called? I can't remember. It was somewhere like that. It actually was born out of the BLM initiative.
Yeah.
Yep. But what this was actually just local people who, they were, mainly, of some ethnic minority or another. And they were concerned about local crime, but most particularly also things like particularly young boys becoming violent and engaging in violence. So one of the things that they wanted was for gyms and martial arts classes and that kind of thing to be put on, so that they would have that outlet, you see, for that kind of thing. Now, I initially looked into this lot from an investigative journalism point of view because I wanted to see whether or not this was just another offshoot of BLM, and technically it sort of was, but actually, no, these people are not a threat. They are not a threat. They are just people who are taking, well, as they say, taking the initiative. I can't believe I'm doing no publicity for them, but I am now.
Wow.
Yeah. But actually that is entirely what they're doing. Are they going to get anywhere? No. But at the same time, sometimes we see these local community organization initiatives that do genuinely represent what local people actually want and do actually contribute towards community cohesion. This is the very important thing. And when we run out of community cohesion, this is what you will see springing up.
I agree entirely. Yeah.
Some people thought with BLM that was what it was. The reality was that was not what it was. Not at all. And that was
I'm just gonna say, I'm just looking at your looking into this because really briefly, I'm just literally looking at it as we're talking, and I think we're going to see a lot more of these parties at a local level because of that kind of the collapse of everything else. The big institutions, the big monoliths have gone, so I think you're going to get a lot more of the kind of, the independent candidate, a lot more of the kind of people rallying around a local issue because they see that the national stuff is just a mess, so we'll do it ourselves, which is what we should have been doing a long time ago. Decisions are made without you, whether, if you turn up or not. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of these little parties that will have not a huge national impact, but locally, they'll start to kind of get a lot of traction. I look at the last local elections and the number of independent candidates, I think was the highest it's ever been. And I think that's a big trend as we move forward, and particularly if Reform don't perform kind of in the national level, when they get into government, I think you'll see that lot will start to break up even more, saying, maybe the national way is not doing it, we do it at a local level, but we stay at a local level.
Well, I was going to say, Rupert Lowe's made Great Yarmouth first, which I've heard nothing about since he actually launched it. So I think he got too much pushback on Twitter to want to promote it there anymore, to be honest with you, because I think a lot of people kind of said, what the hell are you doing? Can we have a national party to fight reform, please? which a lot of those people, like we said before, supporting Rupert Lowe are more radical than Reform, which in a way is very, very useful because we can point to them and say they're actually the mental racists. We're not.
Yeah. It's the what was it? The fruitcakes and loons line from Cameron about UKIP. You know,
exactly.
Like I was saying earlier, it's that shake them off. It's to shake them off situation.
When you see when I was younger, this goes back to about sort of 2007 or 8 kind of time. Yeah, I mean, I was a normie. I wasn't a politico, so to me, it was a case because this is when the BNP was still active, you see. Yeah. So I know people who voted for the BNP. Seriously.
I remember when Nick Griffin was on Question Time and everybody lost their minds over it, and we were all relying on Jack Straw. So I think that says everything about where the nation fell. We were relying on Jack Straw. But actually, to be fair, he did a very good job.
I was going to say it worked.
I think, you know, if you look at
I
always say that. Yeah.
To be fair, Gordon Brown did a very good job in the No campaign in Scotland, didn't he? Even having been a lot of people would argue a fairly useless PM. So there we go. No, it's one of those where, you know, look, at that time in my life, early 20s, I thought, well, BNP equals racism, UKIP equals watered down racism. You see?
Yeah.
Because unless you're actually involved in these things, you don't know. And one of the reasons I became a journalist in the first place was because basically the main reason, because I wanted to know what the hell was going on, and actually know. And that's why we get invited to Reform press conferences these days. But you know, it's just one of those. But you know, yes, you do get fringe parties. One of the successes of the British electoral system is that, you know, for all of its failings in tending to maintain the two-party system, which now isn't, is that it tends to manage to exclude the fringe loonies.
Really well, actually,
Yeah. So this is one of those things. Now, I spoke about this on Talk, where you present B2B. Yes, we will speak about that later.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. And you know, I did say this. There was a segment I was on with Johnny Gould. You must know him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. I like him very much.
Yeah.
But I was on with him talking about Dutch politics. I think probably because they couldn't find anyone else. And why would they? Because of course, why would they? But so there was this you know, sort of can't remember how long the segment was, but we were talking about this election that they had where Geert Wilders, who is basically the Netherlands version of Nigel Farage, now he had won 37 seats, which was the largest party. They have 150 seats in Tweede Kamer, that is the second chamber, the House of Commons, basically. And he had won this, and yet nobody really knew what to do, because it's pretty much a cardinal rule of Dutch politics. Nobody will work with Geert Wilders. Nobody will do it.
Yeah.
You see? And in the end, do you know what they did? They had their typical, you know, coalition agreement talks, that kind of thing. And they decided to appoint Dick Schoof as Mr. President, as in Prime Minister. He was basically the equivalent of, at the time, would have been the head of the civil service in this country, Simon Case. So my point being, this is somebody who was not a politician and therefore had never stood for election. Nobody could have voted for him if they'd wanted to. But that was how crazy that situation got. And I've said to people since, this is why we don't do PR. Okay? But, you know, and that government collapsed within about a year or so, rather unsurprisingly. So it's one of those where you look at these kinds of other situations where people do other things in other ways. And I look at our situation, I say, well, we're quite good at keeping out the people who shouldn't be. I'm not criticizing Dick Schoof. I think he was put, in a position that he should never really have been put in. Obviously, he didn't say no, though, did he? But you know, so quite clearly.
That's a telling moment.
Very balanced on Wolves, yeah.
At the same time, it's one of the things that this country does. The whole reason I've said all of this is that this is one of the things that this country does. Is you might end up with David Cameron, you might end up with a Keir Starmer, but at the end of the day, you have something that approximates stability.
Yeah,
it might be
I do hate to say it, Keir Starmer is probably the best that Labour can provide, which is why switching
Don't
him...
say it again.
Sorry, but switching him probably would actually result in quite a bad result.
Honestly, I have a lot of friends who work at the city, and they're saying the only reason the government is still there is Prime Minister Angela Rayner. The markets and the city is terrified of not just her, but whoever, fruitcake or lunatic they pick to be Chancellor. Because if it's Ed Miliband, heaven help us all. I mean... There's no nice way of saying it,
say
really.
it. Yeah. No, I can very
something
much
worse than I did.
I can very much imagine. One thing I've noticed on this podcast for now, though, have we really mentioned the Tories? Because Kenny Badenoch had a keynote speech where I listened through it 2 separate times, and I have no idea what her point was beyond. Trust me, we are definite. Trust me, we are definitely united.
Yeah, I think it's what do they call it? Like like a check-in, like a welfare check. That's what that is. It's a national welfare check. It's like we're still here, we're still okay. Yeah. But that's all they've got to do. And this is the thing for the Tories: survive. Just keep breathing, and hopefully you'll survive through it to the next general election. Because I think then you'll decide whether it's really time to call it a day or not. I think we're too far out to start making this. It's the death of the Tory party, because I've been having this argument has been going on since 2015, and it's now 2026. At some point, we have to realise that this party that's able to win so many elections for the last 100 and odd years is quite good at surviving things, and it won't go down without a fight.
No, definitely. I mean, well, the reason I bring them up is because obviously you had that keynote speech where even in it she kept trying to say we're definitely the right-wing party, but the 2 of the core right-wing MPs, who were very popular with the right wing of the party, the most popular actually, are gone. And then at the same time she says, this Prosper UK thing that Ruth Davidson started, we don't want to listen to you either because we're looking to the future. To which I thought, what does the future look like? Because I have to admit, that's an interesting thing you bring up, is this Prosper thing. Because I actually think if the Tories wanted to survive, that's how you do it. You don't swing to the right. That space is taken now. Swing to the soft kind of right-left thing, and that's where your votes are, because you got your David Gauks. You also have what I call the Windsor Brigade. Do you know that kind of, not quite London, but they made the money in the city and now they've retired out somewhere. That kind of Tory voter has not jumped to reform. They don't like it. They like his policies, but he's a bit too radical for them. So actually, they'll stick with the Tories, and they like the kind of stable nature of people like Philip Hammond. In other words, they don't do anything. So therefore, that's how the Tory party survived. Don't try to jump to the right, because it's taken. At least for the time being, anyway. To survive, swing there. Yeah. But I don't like giving Ruth Davidson or Andy Street credit.
Go on, Pete.
I was going to say, I took a look at Prosper UK. Again, I don't really know what they stand for. It's just a load of headlines that sound nice. We're for stability. We're competent. We're we don't want radicalism. That sounds nasty. It just sounds like a load of things to avoid giving Tories the ick. It's nice and cuddly.
It's one of those things where if you benefited from the economy before 2016, you're going to think that there was stability. If you didn't benefit from the economy before that, you don't think it was stability. You don't think it was the great, where the sensible was. This is the problem with people keep thinking Brexit is the great moment. It's not. It's more, it brought up everything to the surface that, the establishment would rather look the other way on, because they hadn't bothered to look how everybody was actually doing. I think that's the takeaway with that when it comes to the Ruth Davidson lot, thinking that there's somehow the nice ones, and it was the mean culture wars. I was like, the culture wars have been going on for decades. Like, it's just a complete misunderstanding, and it's infuriating to see them all kind of group around each other.
Well, when I looked at, I looked at Prosper as well, and I had the same sense as I do when somebody uses the phrase, "It is what it is." You see? And the Spanish are no better with que sera, sera. In both cases, you have failed to convey any meaningful information. And when I look at it, what I am pictured with is a slice of cucumber.
Just tasteless and cold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What a great analogy. It's a cucumber.
I'm not even joking. Anytime somebody
I think
says
that's
something,
brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Yeah.
anytime somebody says it is what it is, I just get a slice of cucumber. In my head, I really do.
Yeah.
But
it's not quite.
so-
It's not quite effort we ball, is it?
Yeah.
but sometimes I think, and I recall another phrase from Yes Minister, which I'm sure both of you would know of, is creative inertia.
Yeah.
You remember that one? And that's also what I look at when I think of, when I look at this lot. Is basically everything's fine, and what that means is everything's fine for people like us. Yes, we know it is. It's not fine for everyone else, but you don't care about that because you don't know about it.
Yeah. Well,
So
I was going to say we know that this is the outlook of the Tory party at the moment because what's one of the big reasons Robert Jenrick left or got kicked out because he wants to say
Careerism.
Well, all right. If we ignore that for a second, he was saying, "Oh, I want to say Britain was broken," and basically 2/3 or half, whatever the cabinet, shadow cabinet, I should say, didn't. And then when Kemi was asked at her big keynote speech, where she didn't really say anything, "Is Britain broken?" Well, it's not broken beyond repair. It's like that's Reform's point. What do you mean?
But you can't say it's broken when you were the last person to play with it.
Well,
that's the trap. It's the trap.
Exactly,
they can't say it, but if they don't say it, then they don't recognise the problem. Again, this is the point. It's the games that they're playing. Reform have actually learned to play the game pretty well, very quickly. And I'm starting to wonder whether they've hired very well of actual Westminster people. This is what I was saying, like last time I was with you guys, is saying the levers are starting to be pulled by people who know where to look. And that's the bit that they're starting to learn. And it's going to be interesting to see how everybody else adapts to that, because the SW1's presumption was they're not going to be very good at this. We can run rings around them. Well, they're starting to prove that rather to the counter, I'm afraid. Which it pains me to say to give them a compliment, as most people will probably imagine.
Well, yeah.
Well, with that said, sometimes one person's success is not actually down to their own personal success. It's more down to other people's failures.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're actually that good at what they're doing necessarily. It just means that nobody else is better at it.
Yeah, it is a very
What
low
does that
bar.
describe modern Britain? It's very modern Britain.
Well, there we are, and that's sometimes just where we end up. But like I say, it's this whole question of what the people will be least dissatisfied with, which and there's any number of commentators who can comment on that. But I think where we sit now is that people have voted Labour in massively, except not actually massively, but they've got a massive parliamentary majority regardless. And now it's at the point where we're thinking, don't know whether this was better. Is anything better? Could anything be better?
Or is it a better the devil you know situation? I think that factor is a major bit that this kind of big radical change that everybody keeps talking about scares a lot of people. I think it generally does, and I think they've got to manage that.
But don't you think then that actually, what did the public do in 2024? It was very definitely better the devil you don't know.
Also, they didn't turn out.
Yes, true. But
I think that is the big
also
factor.
true, yeah.
And I expect it to be even lower at the next general election.
You might be right, but I'm just making the point that actually, the way the electorate swings, the way the pendulum swings, is that actually they sort of thought we just want someone who isn't them. So in fact, that is better
Yeah.
the devil you don't know, and that's
Yeah.
that one. So
Well, I think with that, that's a nice place to stop.
Yeah. A
Um,
nice miserable point to it.
I'm always happy to oblige, guys. It's part of the journey.
Yeah.
But well,
Yeah.
I am still hopeful for the future. I do want to throw that out. It's as I always
Yeah,
say on my
same.
channel. I introduce every video like this. Welcome to the clown decade. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But I think things will get better by 2030. There's a lot of hope
I
on
actually think it's a
reform with that.
decade.
Yes, well, quite.
I actually think it's a decade, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but with that, I would like to thank Peter and Patrick for coming on. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, and with that, thank you all very much for listening. And until next time, goodbye.